You can see the remaining games of the season right there in front of the Razorbacks. Coach Pittman talking today. After hearing him speak, how confident are you in Talon Green being the starting quarterback on Saturday and maybe having a full running back room?
Not as confident about the running. He said Green was fine. Worked out last week, acted like there was no issue there. Still not sure about Jaquindon. He said he's going to work out today and then a little more later. Probably the biggest question that he answered was from a week ago when everybody was going, what's up with the secondary? And I think I told you guys that with all this talk about their scheme problem or maybe they just weren't that good, it just looked like to me there was less effort in that game against Ole Miss. And he pretty much confirmed that today. He said he wasn't happy with what they were doing. He said the one thing he regretted from last year was when those guys started going downhill a year ago, he didn't do anything about it. And so what he's done last week and this week is three of the four positions back there are wide open for somebody to come take. I'm assuming that one position is T.J. Metcalf, although he didn't say. The other news is Jalen Braxton, going into the season, might have been arguably their best cornerback. He got hurt against Oklahoma State. He was a preseason All-SEC freshman. He was an All-SEC freshman last year. Preseason second-team All-SEC. Hasn't been available since the Oklahoma State game. And a lot of people believe that's really caused some problems back there. And he's going to work out today, and there's at least a chance that he will play in this game. So all those things would make a big difference, guys, if that's what ends up happening. And then he also said that they do believe, or they did do some things last week and will continue this week to do some things to disguise their coverages back there. He said we might have been unintentionally giving them a look at what we were doing. We suspect that Ole Miss knew what we were doing before we did it. So there's all of that to deal with the secondary issue.
Mike, with as far as what would be one of your keys to the game, I'm trying to look at this Arkansas-Texas matchup and trying to say, well, you know what, the score's 0-0. We go out there, keep it close like Tennessee, keep it a one-possession game as long as we can. Does our defense, obviously we got to tackle better, we got to get to the quarterback. But if you see Arkansas winning this game, is it going to have to be one of those 24-21 type of games?
Well, let me start off by saying that there was a lot of talk about this rivalry and how Arkansas got into it in 2021. Sam Pittman pretty much said it, and that is this is not even close to the same Texas team. They had a quarterback issue in 2021. They don't have that issue. They're better, bigger, faster at almost every position. So it's going to be tough, guys. I don't care what you do. When you look at this team and what they do in the passing game, they are more like LSU. You remember what LSU did? They chewed Arkansas up on the corners. So he said, we've got to be able to deal with them when they try to get people in space. We can't have missed tackles. We've got to turn them inside. He said, because they're as good as anybody about throwing screen passes and doing reverses and getting their people out into space kind of one-on-one and trying to go around people, go outside of people. That hurt them against Mississippi State, too. So that's the number one thing they got to do is funnel everything inside. I don't think they'll have as much of a problem getting beat deep, but that's obviously a possibility too. And then you've just got to compete offensively. You know, you can't have turnovers. I don't know if they can avoid that, but in the games where Arkansas has won, they didn't have turnovers. And virtually every game they've lost this year, turnovers were a huge part of it.
Well, I mean, I see this as a chance to maybe, ruin a season for Texas potentially. I was looking through some of the teams that are competing for, well, really the regular season league championship and also playoff spots. I don't think Texas has a signature win. Vanderbilt's their best win. So I think they need to beat A&M at the end of the season to get into the playoffs. Now, admittedly, a loss to Arkansas doesn't necessarily knock them out of the playoff. But I think they need to. I think they're going to have to beat A&M because I see other teams in this league that have better wins that you say are signature wins. But what would a win for Arkansas? What would a win for Coach Pittman do against Texas? Some folks wonder if that would lead to an extension, or maybe am I going a little bit too far, wondering about what a win would do for them?
Yeah, I don't know that you'd be talking about an extension after all the controversy over the extension he got earlier, 2 or 3 years ago. But I do think there was another thing that happened today, guys, that people should not overlook. Because there was all this talk in the last week, he's having this hip surgery, and it's just too much for him, and he can't recover in time. He's going to voluntarily retire. But what he said today was he's going to have the surgery immediately after the Missouri game, hopes to be back up working by mid-December when the portal opens. Mid-December is also when you start bowl practices. So it doesn't sound like to me that he's planning to retire as a result of hip surgery. If that was the case, he'd just wait till the end of the year, do it, and then he'd never have to deal with when he came back to work. So that probably says more about his future than. But I do agree, if they beat Texas, I mean, there's no way he's probably going to be gone. I don't know about a contract extension, though. I don't know that he would coach long enough to do that. We'll have to see. If it was an extension, it might be a one-year deal.
Mike, who are you more impressed with over the weekend? The way Bama went in there at night in Baton Rouge and mollywopped LSU, never was close, or the way that Ole Miss, with their backs against the wall and the, so to speak, best team in the SEC, Georgia, Ole Miss kind of stood their ground and big-time win. Who impressed you the most?
Yeah, I'd say they were both impressive games, but I'd go with Ole Miss. And I don't – look, who do they have left to play? Florida and Mississippi State?
That's it.
I mean, they're in as far as I'm concerned. I don't see any way they don't get in a championship game unless there's some – the formula for that thing is there's about 6 steps on it, depending on how many people are tied. So I guess you could get into some crazy multiple tie situation where they didn't work it out. But I think they're there. And then who else? Who's the other team? Good grief, who knows? But Ole Miss is in good shape. They've really bounced back. I thought they were going to miss the playoffs completely. And now it looks like unless something happens to these guys in the next 2 weeks, I think they're in. So they got what they wanted.
Georgia, Bama, Ole Miss, Tennessee. Those are the 4 that would be in right now. Maybe A&M. I mean, that could be 5, but that about who you see those 4 teams going?
Yeah, I'd go Texas.
Texas, yep. There we go.
I'd go Ole Miss, and I don't know. I'm thinking A&M would be out because that would mean Texas beat them. So do you bring Georgia back into the mix? Maybe. Alabama's
in. Yeah, they don't play anybody either.
Yeah, so that's where you go. And do they get 4 in, guys? I don't know. Maybe it's just 3.
No,
I think they get 4.
I think it'll be 4 this year.
Yeah, I think it'll be 4.
You're going to see 1 from the ACC, 1 from Big 12, Notre Dame, and then, heck, I mean, it's like you actually may very well see 5.
Depends on if you get an Indiana, Boise State,
right.
Some of these SMU.
Mm-hmm. It's a crazy year of college football, Mike, and you think about how at various times of the year we've had teams that, well, this is the team that's playing best right now. Georgia's playing the best after they – after a win against Texas. Alabama's playing the best after a win against Georgia. A&M's playing the best after they just wiped the floor with Missouri. What it matters is who's playing the best right now, which reminds me of basketball and reminds me of baseball. This isn't the kind of thing you worried about in football too often because if you lost 2 games, one in October, one in September, but you're playing great in November, all that meant was, you might play well in your bowl game if you keep the team together, but it means something a whole lot different now.
Everything's changed, and I still don't think we may be through with this. What's true one week may not be true next week. I mean, I don't think, especially ever since it just seems like when they announced Napier was safe, Florida didn't play as well. But they might bounce back. I mean, what if they beat Ole Miss? I mean, that could suddenly change everything. So there's still options out there. And this has been the craziest year I've ever seen. It's just so balanced. Most people feel like, again, it's because of NIL. NIL was supposed to be this thing that where the rich guys, the money guys, got all the players. But what happened was other teams got good enough players that if you don't play well, they can still beat you. So it kind of elevated the rest of the league.
Hey, Mike, did you get your eyes on the basketball team? I watched the first game I saw the Hogs play. I don't necessarily see the NBA talent in the guards that everybody's talking about. Like, I don't see Anthony Black. I don't even see a Brandon Miller. You know, I don't know. Maybe these guards are good enough, and maybe I'll see more of it, and I'll see what everybody else sees. I see more of our NBA talent is with our bigs. But what were your thoughts on the Arkansas basketball game against Baylor?
Well, if you listen to Cal, and I mean, he's going to say what he wants you to hear, but it also may be what he believes. And I've asked some people about that, and then they know how he typically coaches. His version of that was that, number one, they don't scrimmage in the preseason like other teams do as much. He spends all the summer on conditioning. Then when the fall semester starts, they start working on specific things, but it starts with defense. And then he said what we did after that was we worked on our offense against man defenses, and we didn't do anything about zone defenses, and that's what killed him in the first half of this game. So was that dumb? People tell me that's just the way he does things. The guard thing you're talking about might just be the one guy, you know, John L. Davis he's not shooting right now. Again, Cal said that my teams typically don't shoot well early on because we don't focus on that in practice early. And he said they'll come around. And again, Courtney's dad is a D2 basketball coach who's good friends with Cal, knows him, and he said that he's exactly right. That's what his teams do. So I don't know. I mean, it's a little worrisome to me when you play a Baylor team that just got crushed by Gonzaga, and then Arkansas was in that game. They kept coming close. They tied it up a couple of times late, so it's not like they got blown out. But Baylor just exposed some things. I think they need to get Adu back. You know, he's your starting big guy if he's healthy and he's 100%. We saw again in this game he wasn't. But I think, you know, Zvonimir Ivicic, he's good. And he's developing, but he didn't play a lot last year, so he's still got to develop. And it looked like to me Baylor, he was a mismatch against some of Baylor's more athletic guys going to the basket.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, NBA, and college basketball, NHL to UFC and MMA. Head to BetOnline today to get in on the action with America's most trusted site for online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here.